Hello everyone and welcome into Coach Craig Sports. This is the NFL DFS Core Pick video for week number 2. So if you're joining me for the very first time, first of all, welcome in. Second of all, this is how this week's video will be structured. We'll be going over my core picks for both DraftKings and FanDuel. I'll be going over one player at each position. This structure is going to be a little bit different than I've used in past years. Unfortunately, I was not able to do a video for week 1, so just bear with me as we do work through the process. In future weeks, we'll probably go a little bit more depth in terms of information, but at this point in time, we only have a 1-week sample size, so we'll just be rolling through pretty quickly this week just in general. But without further ado, we'll get started on the DraftKings side. We're going to start off at the quarterback position, and I ultimately ended up on Kyler Murray here. He's at $6,400. So far on the season, averaging just over 8 fantasy points per game. Obviously, like I mentioned, it is a 1-week sample size. He's going against the Carolina Panthers. Should be a really attractive matchup. Obviously, Carolina did have one of the worst defenses overall last year, and they did struggle pretty mightily versus Jacksonville in week 1, especially against the ground. But I do definitely think that Arizona is probably going to be pretty balanced in this game. Definitely do like the upside that Kyler Murray has, especially with his legs and that rushing ability. But he does also have some upside as a passer in this matchup as well. Then we move down to running back with Tien. Speaking of a guy who did really well against Carolina last week, he had over 21 fantasy points. He's at $5,700. So a pretty good price tag still at this point in time. You know, there was some concerns that is he going to be the guy? Is it going to be like a super committee headed into the season? If week 1 is any indication, he is the guy for Jacksonville. Liam Cohen's offense. They did also trade Tank Bigsby away over to the Philadelphia Eagles. I know everybody liked him and Bashal Tutin heading into the season. LaQuinn Allen actually got 2 offensive touches in week 1 prior to those guys, and Bashal Tutin's primarily used as a kick returner. So as long as Travis Etienne stays healthy, he's going to look like a really good player for both fantasy and DFS purposes, and that is going to be the case once again going against the Cincinnati Bengals, who also had a defense that struggled mightily last year. Was a little bit better in week 1, but it was against the Cleveland Browns at the same time as well. Then we move down to wide receiver with Kayshon Boutte. He's at $4,500, so I got a kind of a value option here just to balance out some of the price tags, but he looked really good in week 1. The Miami Dolphins defense struggled mightily against the Indianapolis Colts in week 1, so I think it's going to be a pretty attractive matchup for the Patriots just in general. The Dolphins are going to be without one of their starting corners in Storm Duck, and their defensive back unit outside of Minkah Fitzpatrick was already pretty bad just to start with. So definitely do like Kayshon Boutte, Stephon Diggs quite a bit in this matchup, but ultimately ended up with Kayshon Boutte here as he is the cheaper option. And he was also the player that did perform a little bit better in week 1, but definitely do like the upside of both those players. Then we moved down to tight end. We got Trey McBride here at $6,000. He had just over 12 points in week 1 going against Carolina Panthers. Like I did mention, their defense was not so great last year. 2 new linebackers, essentially. You know, Trayvon Wallace did play a little bit at the end of last year, but he's still a relatively young, unproven player there. And then Christian Rosenboom, who is a decent linebacker, but, you know, he's still not the most experienced guy in his own right. You know, he's pretty much started for like 1 year with the Rams, was kind of a rotational player before that. You know, prior to last season, he was decent in coverage, but then last year wasn't quite as good. Obviously, those stats can vary quite a bit year to year, especially at that linebacker position. Definitely do like the upside of Trey McBride. A lot of targets, a lot of potential catches for him. And their second string tight end, and Tip Ryman, is also going to be out for this game. Probably not going to be any extra playing time for Trey McBride since he already plays almost every snap as it is, but there could be like an extra target to go around and maybe some potential red zone work since Tip Ryman is a bigger tight end, so that might be the one place where he would succeed would be in the red zone. And then last but not least, we move down to defense. We're going with the Patriots defense. They're going against the Miami Dolphins. They are $2,800, so a good price tag there. They are a much improved defense. The one concern for them is that Christian Gonzalez is out, but if the indication from the Colts defense and their game plan against Miami Dolphins transpires into week 2 whatsoever, should be a really good matchup for them. The Miami Dolphins offensive line is not very good whatsoever. James Daniels was placed on IR. Austin Jackson's out for this week, so they're already missing 2 starters. Going to be a rough day for Tua and company. So definitely do like the upside of that Patriots defense once again. But with that being said, if you do go with the 5 players that I do currently have listed here, you got $24,600 remaining, just under $6,200 remaining per player. So it's looking more like a balanced build the rest of the way from here. Obviously, if you want to pay down at one of these positions, you know, Kyler Murray, Trey McBride would be a decent spot to do that. You know, you could go from Kyler Murray to Drake May. You could go from Trey Bride down to like Travis Kelce or even cheaper tight end. Lots of good tight ends on this slate this week overall. So definitely some room to kind of mix and match if you want to have more money to spend at the same time as well. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to FanDuel and talk about my core picks over there as well. So we're going to start off at the top with the quarterback position. I got Josh Allen here. He's at $8,800. Obviously, he had that killer week 1. He's going against the New York Jets, who did struggle mightily in week 1 going against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, there is a new defensive scheme coming over. that Jets defense had previously been really good. But we even saw with the Detroit Lions when Aaron Glenn took over as defensive coordinator there was about half a season where their defense still was struggling, and there was like fans calling for his head, and then it kind of finally righted the ship and got better. So would not be surprised if it takes a little bit of time for that Jets defense to kind of self-correct with that new scheme, but definitely do like Josh Allen on this upside. Obviously, he has that rushing upside, has some touchdown equity in the ground game at the same time as well. So I definitely do not mind paying up for him, especially on the FanDuel side this week. And then at running back, we have Travis Etienne once again. He's at $6,700. He had about 20 fantasy points in week 1 going against the Carolina Panthers. This week going against the Cincinnati Bengals. They did struggle quite a bit last year. They did look a little bit better against the Browns in week 1, but it is the Browns team that is not expected to be very good. Travis Etienne should get the lion's share of the touches for this Jacksonville unit. And kind of like I mentioned on DraftKings, they trade away Tank Bigsby to the Philadelphia Eagles. And everybody was kind of assuming it was going to be more of a committee. And through at least 1 week, it looks like Travis Etienne is going to be the guy as long as he does stay healthy. We have LaQuint Allen and Bashal Tootin behind him. LaQuint Allen actually got 2 offensive touches before both Tank Bigsby and Bashal Tootin in week 1. And Tootin was primarily used as a kick returner. So definitely do like the upside of Etienne once again. And then we move down to wide receiver with Khalil Shakur. He's at $5,900. Didn't have the greatest week 1, but in this matchup going against the Jets, primarily playing out of the slot. And that is the spot where you typically want to target the Jets defense just in general. Typically, you have Michael Carter, the second play in there. He's banged up at this point in time. I believe he's technically listed as questionable for this game. We'll see whether or not he plays or not. So if he's unable to go, you're going to get his backup. If he's able to go, he's a little bit banged up. So it should be a really advantageous matchup for Khalil Shakur, who, like I said, didn't have the greatest week 1, but definitely do like his upside in week 2 at a reasonable price tag. And then we're going to move down to tight end with Travis Kelce's at $6,200. Obviously, we did see Xavier Worthy go down in week 1. He is out. Jalen Royals is out. And then obviously Rashee Rice is still serving his suspension, so there is plenty of targets to go around. Philadelphia Eagles, their linebackers, they're pretty solid, but, if there's one detriment to the linebackers that they do have, they're probably going to struggle a little bit in coverage, so I would not be surprised if Travis Kelce goes out and has a really strong game just in general. Had just under 12 points in week number 1. Definitely do like his upside in this matchup in a game that should be very competitive and probably going back and forth once again. And then we move down to the defense. I'm going to go with the Arizona Cardinals here. They're at $3,900. They are essentially the cheapest defense that I do like on the FanDuel side, so I like them in this matchup versus the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers, that offensive line did not look very good in week 1. Ike Ekwonu missed week 1, technically still listed as questionable for week 2. He was able to practice in a limited capacity all week, but he's done with an illness, so even if he goes out there and plays, might not look the greatest overall. And I definitely do like some of what that Cardinals defense was able to do week 1 versus the Saints. Obviously, it's the Saints team that's not expected to be very good, but I think they're able to mix and match some looks that could potentially give Bryce Young and company on offense some problems. But with that being said, if you go with the 5 players that I do have listed here, you got $28,500 remaining, just over $7,100 remaining per player. So kind of like I mentioned on DraftKings, looks like a little bit of a balanced build the rest of the way from here, but definitely feel free to mix and match as you do see fit. And with that being said, I think there's a lot of good advantageous matchups on the slate. But with that being said, that's what I do have in terms of my core picks for NFL DFS for week number 2. As always, if you have any questions related to NFL DFS, be sure to drop them down in the comment section below, and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. And then I will also mention that I did post up links to my NFL DFS cheat sheets for both DraftKings and FanDuel that can be found on the YouTube community page, my Twitter, Facebook, Blue Sky. So there's a lot of different ways to access those cheat sheets. They are 100% free. If you're looking for a little bit more in-depth player pool, feel free to check out my Patreon page. Very small monthly donation over there. You get access to that for a month. You get access to my CFL DFS sheets for a month. And then you also get access to my MLB DFS notes for the rest of the MLB season. But with that being said, if you are brand new to my channel, checking it out for the very first time, or have yet to subscribe, please consider doing so. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now, we have MLB DFS in terms of the core picks, typically Monday through Friday. Thursdays have been a little bit weird lately, so I've been mainly just posting my notes for Thursday slate for free up on my Patreon page. And then I do have my CFL DFS video coming out once a week that typically comes out on Wednesdays. And then I will also be posting my NFL DFS Core Pick videos every single week that will either be coming out on Friday or Saturday. It's going to fluctuate a little bit week to week, but definitely be on the lookout for that. And then last but not least, if you're interested in sports betting, if you're interested in prop betting, be sure to check out the links and promo codes down in the description below for BetUS and PrizePicks. If you're a brand new user to either one of those sites, when you sign up, make your initial deposit, you will get a first match deposit bonus. For PrizePicks, it's 100% match up to $100. And then for BetUS, it's 125% match up to $2,000. So some pretty great opportunities to be had out there. If you have any other additional questions related to that whatsoever, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's down in the comment section below or on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport, and would be more than happy to help you with that journey. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have for this week's video. Definitely do appreciate each and every one you tune in. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in NFL DFS for week 2.